you know, that Hinkle isn't such a bad fella after all.
Most amusing.
Here you are, get a Hinkle button, get a Hinkle button. A fine photo with a fooey on each and every button. Two.
Mein Freunden,
Here you are,
Verleiten nicht der Geld der Bekossen, but der Tuten, Straf, mit der Strafen, lächeln mit der Tuten, der Tuten, Schutz, mein Straf, der Dick, der Sack, und der Brötzensack, und der Brotzensack, und der Viertensack, mit Strandel lächeln mit einer der Blut mit seiner Tochter, der Tuten hat, und der Ghetto mit einer Blitzkrieg, ein Straf, der Tutensack, der Hals, mit der Tutensack, der Hals, die Alien mit Elbensack, Straf, Hals, mit einem Platz, das angespielten wird.
Come on, let's hurry.
After more than a year in production, The Great Dictator opened in New York on October 15th, 1940. Crowds thronged to the theaters on the night of the premiere. Chaplin's first talking picture was an immediate and tremendous hit. The Great Dictator is my first picture in which history is greater than The Little Tramp, Chaplin would say. 2 months later, the film opened in London to equal success. Occupied by Nazi Germany, France would have to wait until 1945 to see the film. The night of the New York premiere, Chaplin at last introduced Paulette Goddard as his wife. It all began with a love story. It was during a long trip to Asia 4 years earlier that Chaplin secretly married Paulette Goddard, his co-star in Modern Times. The young woman was then 25 and was accompanied by her mother. Paulette Goddard, whose real name was Marion Levy, was Chaplin's third wife. Chaplin was already thinking about his next film, in which he again wanted to cast Paulette Goddard. But again I was faced with the same depressing question, said Chaplin. Should I make another silent picture? I had thought of possible voices for the tramp, whether he should speak in monosyllables or just mumble. But it was no use. If I talked, I would become like any other comedian. Chaplin spent the entire summer of 1938 at Pebble Beach, a residential area for millionaires near Carmel, 100-odd miles south of San Francisco. There, he struck up a friendship with Tim Durant, a wealthy young man, and Dan James, an aspiring writer and ardent Marxist who suggested that he work with Chaplin on a script. In search of a story, Chaplin remembered an idea his friend Alexander Korda, the British producer and filmmaker, had suggested to him in which he would play two roles, Hitler and the tramp. This would allow Chaplin to hang on to his silent character and at the same time settle some scores with his rival, the man who had stolen his mustache. The thief in question, Hitler. In 1939, Hitler was 50 years old, the same age as Chaplin.
What's incredible is that he wrote the script in 1937 to 38. Well, at that moment, Hitler wasn't only the great hero for Germany because he had saved Germany from communism, since the German Communist Party was the largest in Europe, it had 20 million members, but also because he had totally revived the economy. He gave everybody work. And there were problems virtually everywhere in the world, especially in America after 1929. It was thought that it would take a man like Hitler everywhere to save the world, to save the economy, to save the world from communism. So he was the great hero. And at that moment, Charlie Chaplin decided he would go with this film after all, which means that he had seen right. He was a visionary. He saw what was going to happen later.
For me, the funniest thing in the world, said Chaplin, is to ridicule imposters and conceited people in high places. The greater the imposter you take on, the better your chances of making a funny picture, and it would be harder to find a bigger imposter than Hitler. He was the best target in the world for satire and mockery.
Hinkle's palace was the center of a gigantic enterprise, an enterprise that would build the world's greatest war machine.
Behind this undertaking was the dynamic energy of Adenoid Hinkle, whose amazing genius ran the entire nation, whose ceaseless activity kept him busily occupied every moment of the day.
What may seem surprising today is the silence around him. While Charlie Chaplin, filmmaker and clown, in a certain way, looked into history, and he saw the future, while the great spiritual and political leaders of the world couldn't see it and remained on Hitler's side, considering Germany a Christian nation. So Hitler wasn't to be meddled with. And from another angle, they saw it as a conservative country with which they could do a lot of business, which is what all big companies did. So hands off Hitler.
For the first time in his career, Chaplin sat down to write a real screenplay. The script of The Great Dictator would be 300 pages long. The film is set in an imaginary country, Tomania, which comes under the yoke of a dictator, Adenoid Hinkle. Chaplin would also play the role of the Jewish barber who returns home from World War I, a total amnesiac. When the subject of The Great Dictator was released to the press, the reactions in Hollywood were hostile and malicious, with some dispensers of advice pointing out that his film ran the good chance of being banned in certain countries, which represented a major financial loss. Despite pressures from various quarters, including the diplomatic sphere, Chaplin made up his mind to go through with the picture and financed it alone to the tune of $2 million. His aim was clear: persuade America to take the right stand. And his only weapon, his absolute weapon, would be laughter.
Wir sehen, der Arien und na, der Schuten. Der Schuten. Und das trifft das Sauerkraut mit der Schuten. Und der Leberwurst mit der Schuten. Der Flitzensack Tiger mit der Schuten. Der Flutensack der Klärten. Das Strängelichen mit der Hultensack der Fläten. Und der Blätzensack der Elten. Besick! Besick! Der Schuten. Der Schuten.
His Excellency has just referred to the Jewish people.
As he went into pre-production, Chaplin conducted research and screened a large number of newsreels. He took inspiration both from Hitler's gestures and from the stagings of the fascist marches and military parades showing a fanatical German people galvanized by the Führer.
Vor uns liegt Deutschland, in uns marschiert Deutschland und hinter uns kommt Deutschland.
We now pause for station identification.
This is the Pari-Mutual Network, bringing you direct from Tomania, Adenoid Hinkle's address to the sons and daughters of the Double Cross. The English interpreter is Heinrich Stick, Adenoid Hinkle's personal translator, who is apparently reading from a prepared manuscript. Stand by for further commentary. Go ahead, Tomania.
His Excellency is about to descend the stairs.
Safety. Oh, Your Excellency! Oh, are you hurt? Oh,
Straf! Straf! Da Fluten bleiben da diese Kraken!
the Fluten, the banana!
Da Fluten! Der Banana!
Du, das kleine Banana!
Der Banana stumpft ein Strepp mit seiner Grund, ein Schieß der Banana!
The banana!
Der dicke Buben ist dicker, du Straff mit seiner Hand!
Banana!
Banana! Dein Big Buben, er fein durch dieses Crackers mit Alten!
Banana! Oh!
For the role of the other dictator, Napoleone, Chaplin cast comic actor Jack Oakey, who bore an unmistakable resemblance to Benito Mussolini.
It's a very nice people. I said the people are very nice.
Thank you.
On September 9th, 1939, 6 days after the outbreak of war in Europe, Chaplin began principal photography on his film. His brother, Sidney, filmed several production scenes on color film stock. Without these images, we would never have known that the militiamen wore red trousers.
The scene at the station is made up of three things: costumes, a carpet, and I would say, just like in the theater, with flats that are lowered, with a train that isn't a train, but is something which moves forward and backwards.
Come on. Lay down here. Quick, hurry.
It's going back again.
What?
What do you do, you salami?
We know that Chaplin didn't have money problems when it came to making a film. He could spend money, he could recreate a train, as it was usually done in Hollywood. But I think this was also a way of showing how absurd this arrival is, the absurdity of these characters. Behind this extraordinary dictator, everything is cardboard, so it's like a bad play.
My friend.
This is indeed a pleasure.
Thank you.
Welcome to Tomania. This way.
Pictures, Your Excellencies?
Oh, sure. Salute.
Another one, please.
This is really a pleasure to be here, my friend Hinkle. Oh, you want another picture? Mr. Miller. There.
It's a total mockery of these regimes using absurd humor. But we mustn't forget that this came at a time when the regimes in question were at the peak of their glory and following. They had the entire world behind them, and everyone regarded them with great admiration.
Chaplin, political filmmaker or committed citizen. As early as 1918, only a few years after settling in America, Chaplin had joined his friends Douglas Fairbanks and Mary Pickford to launch a war bond campaign to stop the Germans and end the war in Europe. That same year, he had made Shoulder Arms.
There you are.
Huh?
Oh, excuse me. The enemy! Come on, fellas, let's get him!
After doing research on the period for my film, Amen, I realized how deeply historical and deeply intelligent the film is. It opens with the Great War, and in fact, the Hitlerian tragedy began with the Great War, because Germany lost the war, and in 1918 immediately began to blame the Jews. Firstly, for having caused the war, and secondly, for having lost it. That's when the anti-Semitism began, and gradually grew until 1930, and then of course in 1933.
What do you think you're doing?
I really don't know.
Well, you leave that alone.
Don't be silly.
I'm not silly.
I appreciate that.
When you talk to me, hail Hinkle and salute.
Who are you anyway?
I'll show you who I am. Come down to headquarters.
Say, that's my shop.
I don't care if it isn't. Now, you come down.
You leave me alone.
Oh, going to put up a fight, are you? Come on down to headquarters.
Show you?
Now, let me tell you something.
Are you a policeman? Arrest that man for assault.
Come here, you.
Leave me alone.
Fat-tacking a stone trooper. Hold him. Take him down.
My lawyer.
Come on.
Leave me alone.
Why, you. Oh! Turn around.
Oh, he bit my finger. Oh,
There.
Along with the Marx Brothers, Chaplin had become the bête noire of the fascist regimes holding sway over Germany and Italy. His films were banned, and Nazi propaganda held up Chaplin the filmmaker and the character of the tramp, which hardly conformed to the Aryan ideal, as the very embodiment of the Jew. In 1939, the American press carried stories on Chaplin's financial donations to Jewish relief funds for the tens of thousands of German Jews trying to escape Germany and Nazi persecutions. Chaplin was dubbed the 20th century Moses. Chaplin never tried to dispel the misunderstanding concerning his roots. He told one journalist, "I'm not Jewish. I haven't a drop of Jewish blood. I never protested when someone said I was a Jew because I would have been proud to be one."
You'll need some more tobacco.
Where are you going?
I'm delivering Mrs. Shoemaker's laundry.
Oh, you better take the key. Mrs. Jekyll and myself are going out. I'm locking up all the doors in case the stormtroopers will start their monkey business again.
In The Great Dictator, Chaplin set out to describe life in a Jewish ghetto. Paulette Goddard plays Hannah, the young woman in love with the barber, the embodiment of both courage and the spirit of liberty.
You have no right to do this.
That's all right. Just charge it to my account. Nice ripe tomatoes, boys.
Why don't some of you do something? I wish I was a man. I'd show you.
Now, what would you do, my pretty maid?
Ah, you're very brave altogether, but not one of you got guts to stand up alone and fight.
Ah, shut up.
Is that why you got a truck to run away in case somebody hits your back?
Shut up or we'll take you down.
All right, come on and take me. You get a lot of medals for it. All you can do is to pick on women and rob defenseless people.
Ah, don't rob the poor girl, boys. Give her back her tomatoes. Here.
Throughout the film, she is the one who dreams of a better world, a promised land.
There goes the barber shop.
Never mind, we can start again. We can go to Austerlitz, that's still a free country. Mr. Jekyll says it's beautiful there. Wonderful green fields, and they grow apples and grapes.
In 1938, when Kristallnacht occurred, I think it must have crystallized his script and its contents. If you watch the film closely, there's talk of concentration camps. In 1938, 30,000 Jews had already been sent to concentration camps in the wake of Kristallnacht. The actor who plays Goering arrives at one point. If you remember, he's the one who comes up with phony parachutes,
The most compact in the world, worn like an ordinary hat.
phony protective devices against bullets.
Shoot.
He says, "I've just discovered a poison gas that will kill everybody." So it was already a question of Zyklon. In the film, there's indirect talk of Zyklon as early as 1938.
We've just discovered the most wonderful, the most marvelous poison gas. It will kill everybody.
All right, later.
It's true that when you watch the film just like that, it seems like a kind of gag. But knowing now what they didn't know then, you realize he had been right all down the line. He was a visionary.
Out Caesar, out Nolus, Emperor of the world.
The Globe scene is probably one of the most brilliant scenes in all cinema. There's the powerful idea about dictatorship behind it, and the reaction to this dictatorship. There's the drama because he wants to have the entire Earth, and at the same time, there's the absurdity and the dance. It's a total, absolute piece of choreography. He must have filmed it in a single take, then done cutaway shots of the balloon, which rises and falls, all that in a single take up till there, which allows him to go to a cutaway shot. Here, he's not Hitler, he's Charlie Chaplin, totally. He plays with it as if playing with the sensual love of a woman. And at the same time, this love moves towards the horror of someone who wants to manipulate the earth in this way.
By March 1940, the main shooting of The Great Dictator was finished. But the final speech, which lasted 6 minutes, remained to be shot. Chaplin's collaborators remained highly skeptical about this scene. Chaplin defended it by saying it was the speech the little Jewish barber would have made about a promised land and a better world. One discrete detail underlines the fact that it is not Hinkle addressing the soldiers, but the barber, the lock of gray hair above the black mustache.
People tend to say, but he's surrounded by Nazis, someone has to react. So we move in on him, he stands there alone, and then it's simply him and his speech.
I'm sorry, but I don't want to be an emperor. That's not my business. I don't want to rule or conquer anyone. I should like to help everyone if possible. Jew, Gentile, black man, white.
And here he's very cinematic because he eliminates all the elements around him that make us think of Hitler, make us think of the gags earlier, with the microphones, the idiots around him. That's a display of cinematic subtlety which isn't visible, but which I think the audience picks up on immediately because we remain on him.
Let us all unite! Let us fight for a new world, a decent world, that will give men a chance to work, that will give youth a future and old age a security. By the promise of these things, brutes have risen to power, but they lie. They do not fulfill that promise. They never will. Dictators free themselves, but they enslave the people.
It was the rarest thing in the world at the time to have the courage, or rather the rashness, to make a speech that long as the climax of an entertainment. For Americans at the time, the movies were entertainment.
Hannah, can you hear me? Wherever you are, look up, Hannah. The clouds are lifting. The sun is breaking through. We are coming out of the darkness into the light.
It's the very essence of the cinema, the human face. There are great landscapes, great deeds. Personally, I think the greatest landscape in the cinema, the one that says everything or nothing, is still the human face.